It is Tuesday, May 12th, 2009. Thank you, Dave,
Thank
for
you.
being with us today and sharing your memories. Why don't we just start right off with the beginning? Where were you born and how were you raised?
Well, I was born on a house on Liberty Road in Holbrook, Maryland, which is about a mile and a half east of the Carroll County line. I'm not a Carroll County resident. I live on Ward's Chapel Road now, but I was raised within a mile and a half of the county line.
Okay.
I lived in one house till I was about 2, and then across the road till I was about 7, and then west of Ward's Chapel Road until I was 19. A lot of changes. I remember Liberty Road when it was 2-lane asphalt with a 1 foot or 2 foot concrete shoulder back in the old days. And when I was growing up during the wartime, I can remember that tractor and trailers coming down from Hagerstown plant in Fairchild with aircraft wings and aircraft fuselages and all being taken over to Martin's Airport to assemble to fly out to someplace to be shipped overseas. So, like I say, I've seen a lot of changes in this area over the years.
Yeah. So what year was that you were born?
I was born in 1940, January 1940.
Okay. And so you went to high school where?
I went to high school. I went to Randallstown Elementary School 6 years till 1952, and then I went to Milford Mill Junior Senior High School, which is now Milford Mill Academy, but later on it was Milford High School, only had 4 years. And I tell everybody I went to Milford for 6 years. They say, you were pretty dumb, weren't you? But actually it was junior, senior, 7th
Right.
through 12th.
Right.
But
So you've been in this area pretty much all your life.
almost 70 years,
That's
69 and a half years.
Now, after high school, you went into project engineering.
No, I started out surveying with the state of Maryland State Highway Department, and I worked in what they call the right-of-way division, which we went around and, excuse me, if people didn't want to sell their land to the state for the roadway, they performed condemnation surveys, and we staked out the property corners enough for the juries to come out and look and make judgments on how much the property owner would get. And we did that throughout the state of Maryland. I worked in all 23 counties in the first 18 months I was with the state.
Wow.
So it was the most interesting part to me was surveying the ownerships and all. We had to go back to the courthouses and go back through the old property plats and property deeds and everything and read the historic things from so many paces from a stake near a big rock and next to the stream and all that. And it was really interesting to see the way people wrote things out back then in those days, back in the 1800s and all, and went all through that survey. And then I found out that in surveying you had to wait for the guy ahead of you to be promoted or die, so I transferred to construction division.
Right.
So there was more openings and more opportunities there, so I transferred there in 1962. And first project I worked on was Kenilworth Avenue over Capitol Beltway on Washington Beltway back in 1962.
That's when they were just starting.
They just started the Beltway, and we were building the bridges over it. And then I stayed in District 3, which is Prince George and Montgomery County, until 1972.
Wow.
And then I was in construction. I went to Frederick District and worked on Route 70 from Route 32 to Route 97. And then they pulled me out of there and went and did the big high mast lighting project on I-95 from Prince George's County line to Baltimore County line, all those big tall light poles you see.
Yep.
I was assistant project engineer on that job.
Yep. And you got pulled back here, right? And you started to work on
the
dam, or no?
Well, I was working on a job in Baltimore and Harford County on Route 40 repaving.
Okay.
And there was a push project, so we were doing a lot of overtime. And they found out I was making too much money, so they sent me to the city, and they gave me a promotion and a freeze on overtime, so I got not happy there.
Right, right.
Later on, I ended up working on Liberty Reservoir Bridge. But to preface that, I knew there was a problem with the bridge because one night, sitting on CB radio watch at home, I heard a guy call for help. And I answered him. He said, "I'm stuck in the bridge."
In the bridge?
In the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, I said, "Okay, sit tight, I'll be right there." So I got in the truck and went down there, and he was stuck in the bridge. Back when the bridge was built originally, they had a concrete decking, and they had a blacktop overlay. Well, nobody thought at the time that the blacktop overlay was going to hold the road salt and allow it to deteriorate the concrete underneath of it. So when the concrete broke away, the asphalt had no supporting ability. So the guy's riding across the road in a Volkswagen, the pavement broke through, and he was stuck in between the reinforcing bars.
Well, thank God for the rebar.
So I got down there and I called back to my wife at the base station. I said, "Honey, call state police and have them bring a tow truck up to get him out of the roadway." So when the cops got there, they called for the highway department to bring a steel plate down and put over. Not ever thinking anything going like that. Me working in the city, that in 3.5 years I was going to be back there replacing the deck on the bridge, and tore all the decks off and started all over. It was a 3-phase project. What he did, 1 lane and then 2 lanes over there, and then he separated the lanes and then ran 1 each way. Did the middle, and then they put 2 lanes on the finished concrete, and they did the other one. Well, I didn't get to see the end of it because they pulled me off, sent me back to Baltimore City after about 10 months.
Yeah.
And they finished the job, but I came back periodically to check on the record keeping and make sure everything was all caught up and everything. But it was an interesting project since I had seen the original bridge being built when I was a kid,
Right.
living right up the street from it in the dam and knowing all the history about that.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You grew up, really close by.
I grew up within a mile of it. Every evening or every other evening, I'd jump on my bike and ride down to the bridge site and see what was going on. And I didn't want to ride all the way down the hill because it was a long way back up. So once in a while, I'd get my father or my mother to ride me down the bottom of the hill so I could look up and see what all had been done over the last couple of weeks. And then and my grandmother lived right up the hill off of Ward's Chapel Road from where the dam was being built, and I rode down the old road and the access road down to the dam and seen all that. And I've got pictures of that, which you're all probably going to put on.
Right, you got pictures before and
before
after.
and after.
Yeah.
Got pictures up towards the mill, the old mill up there, Oakland Mills, which was a textile industry that employed over 400 people before they closed it down and demoed it and shut it down and everything. That was a big employer around the area.
Now, and now we want to take a look. You brought with you today a map, right, from 1960.
61 or 62.
61 or 62. So,
It's based on U.S. Census.
right.
And I put a couple marks on here showing where I was born, where I was raised, and
this is a photocopy, but you have
this is a photocopy. I have the original.
You have the original at home.
It's like yay big, and it's the whole Baltimore County.
All right. Why don't we take a look at that then?
Okay.
Okay, so here we have a map from 1962 or 61. And it shows the area where Mr. Horn grew up, and shows the Liberty Dam. And I'm going to let Mr. Horn go through some of the highlights of this map here.
Well, this point up here, number 1 is where I was born, the house where I was born. Number 2 across the street is where I moved to when I was about 2 or 3 years old.
Do you remember the address of the house where you were born?
No,
Okay.
we didn't have addresses back then. It was all RFD.
Oh, it was all RFD?
Right.
Interesting.
And in 1947, we moved to a farm up here, where owned by somebody else. All of this was we were rented, and proximity. This white line right through here is the Liberty Reservoir Bridge area. The yellow line is the approximate route of Old Liberty Road before the area was flooded. It came down here. Right here, at this point right here, is where the old North Branch one-room schoolhouse was, and it's a resident now. and that's right there, and the road stops there. And this side over here, the road actually crossed under the bridge. What the road that you see as you come across the bridge down on this side was an access put in by the city for a boat ramp for people to launch their boats. So that was put in later. And the old road came over, crossed over behind Chevette, opposite Chevette's, and then on down, and then this is the Snowden's Creek Bridge down in here. My grandmother, she lived down here off of Ward's Chapel Road, right in this area down in here. And this is the road that goes back to the dam now. But the road used to run right down along the edge of the water. There was no water in here. This was all road down in here. You can see the old houses were down here along the water, and they were all flooded out and closed out years and years and years before. And this is the dam down in here. This is the actual road now where it goes back to the dam. So.
And that dam is a water supply.
That is a water supply. Okay, turned off. Marn's getting tired.
Yeah. You can go ahead and put the map down.
Oh, here, you can have that. I gotta go.
Thank you.
But yeah.
So your family grew up in this area.
We have been in this area pretty much. My father's family, my grandmother's house was an old log cabin.
Yep.
And it was there until caught fire in 1957 and burned out. Well, she was living up with my aunt up the top of the hill from it. It was a log cabin covered with shingles.
She had plumbing?
No. There was a spring down the bottom of the hill that up until she was in her 80s, she used to go down and get her bucket and carry water up, or we'd go down and do it for her.
And electricity?
Yeah, I had electric in there.
Did have electric in there.
But the house was eventually, my uncles were roofers inside it, and they put asphalt shingles on there. Well, when the house caught fire, it was struck by lightning.
Wow.
It burned so intensely, the asphalt shingles popped, and some of them went 80 to 100 feet out in the yard.
Oh my.
So my cousin and I spent about 4.5 months raking shingles out of the yard so we could cut grass again. But the big center beam through the house was 16 inches square, and it burned for almost 3 weeks.
Amazing.
And it just never let up. So.
Now let's go back even a little bit further before your grandma. You said that your folks, your ancestor, came over. When was that?
My mother's grandfather came over in 1840 from Wales. Took him 78 days to come over, and it was most of the family settled up in around Shamokin and all in Pennsylvania. Worked in the coal mines up there. But my mother's grandfather and his brother came down and worked in the foundries down in Canton, the copper foundries and all.
Yeah.
And one of them, I don't know which one, was the foreman for the castings for the lions that sit out in front of the Baltimore Art Museum.
How about that?
So,
now, round about when was that, when they came from Pennsylvania down to Maryland?
Well, they didn't come. They came directly here from wherever the boat landed, Philly or whatever. I don't know where they landed, or somewhere up in New Jersey somewhere. They came straight down here. So that was that was probably in the 1840s, 1850s, something like that. They migrated down here
from Wales.
From Wales, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm being told that we got to wrap it up here, so I want you to go ahead and just tell us whatever you would like to tell us, and think about what you would want posterity to know.
Some of the activities around this area, not many people know that there was a racetrack up here. Condon Speedway was up here off of Liberty Road, opposite Clees Mill Road, back off of the old Liberty Road. And we spent a lot of time up there. A lot of racers came from Dorsey Speedway and Westport Speedway, came up here to run. Activities, I was active in the church, youth groups and all. I actually married a girl from our youth group in church. And we were interconnected with what they called Patapsco Sub-District, which was Wesley Freedom Church here in Eldersburg, St. Paul's in Sykesville, Calvary up in Gamber, several others around Oakland Church. And we used to get together and play volleyball tournaments in the summer and all. And I still have a lot of close ties with those people. And some of the guys especially, I've been a volunteer fireman for 49 years, and I had interaction with those guys through Sykesville Fire Department. I got to keep in touch with them. And some of our activities, we used to go roller skating up at Rainbow Roller Rink, which is up near Tawnytown, and had a bowling alley in the basement for those that couldn't skate. And on the way home, we stopped at Bulger's for ice cream. So we had a lot of activities. So I know a lot about what went on in Carroll County from the 50s and 60s and on, because I didn't live in Carroll County, but that was my haunts, my stomping grounds more or less. So got to know a lot of people up around this area and run into various people. I played baseball a lot when I was a kid, and it's funny because one of the girls in their group up here, I happened to know her husband back in the 50s when we played pony league ball, and I asked her about all this. She was kind of spooked when I asked her about her husband's name and all, and talked to her about that, and she said, boy, she said, you don't get far from home, do we? I said, no, we pretty much keep close to home, and families are interrelated in our church and all. So my wife and I are actually cousins. Her father's grandmother and my grandmother were sisters. So like you got to get out of the neighborhood or families, because down around here you're either in-laws or outlaws. So
Dave, thank you very much.
That's quite all right. We're glad to
we really appreciate this.
share what time I had with it, and hope you can use some of the pictures and all.
Sure we will. Thank you very much, Mr. Warren.
Thank you.